Thank you, and welcome to the second episode of the Medical Affairs Dialogues. I am in talk and discussion with a great leader today, who's a leader in project management, and it's my honor to welcome Dr. Sriram Rajagopalan. Um, Today, we are exploring a very intriguing intersection: project management and medical affairs. Welcome, Sriram.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We have already worked together, and I already know, and we are continuing to work on several projects, but it's a personal honor to welcome you in my podcast. And I'm very excited for today's episode because whether you are a project management professional or a medical affairs expert, you will have something valuable to take away from this episode, and then you can go back home and apply it in your work. So, without any further delay, I want to really introduce our esteemed guest, Sriram. Dr. Sriram Rajagopalan serves as the global head of Agile Strategy, Transformation, and Training Services at Inflectra. He is an assistant teaching professor at Northeastern University. He has helps executive roles managing portfolios for prominent clients and received the prestigious PMI Eric Jennett Excellence Award in 2017. Dr. Rajagopalan is an accomplished author. He has developed frameworks like Tones, Parag, and Sleep and offers extensive training in agile and project management. He's passionate about youth leadership through his Projecting Leaders of Tomorrow, the Plot Initiative, and actively participates in various professional conferences and volunteer organizations. Dr. Rajagopalan holds advanced degrees in engineering, business, and organization management, and along with that, numerous professional certifications. What a illustrious career, Sriram. It's an honor again to welcome you in this podcast, this episode. Before we delve into the details of our topic and the questions that I have for you, I want you to share your career journey with all my viewers.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, Pratati. It is my honor and privilege to be presenting these topics with you. I started my career long time back just as a software engineer. I had interest and aspirations of becoming a doctor, but for various reasons, I chose engineering. And then I continued my biomedical engineering passion of IT applications in medicine with University of Aberdeen in Scotland. And then I came to the United States where I did my computer engineering, started working as a software engineer, and then continued to progress as a system analyst, business analyst, senior software engineer, and multiple roles. And then I found my passion with project management. At the end of the day, leading people to deliver products, services, and results is what project management is all about. And so I found my passion there. And I continued to head multiple initiatives in various industries. Along the way, I did my MBA in management, and I also completed my PhD in organizational leadership with the focus of project management, virtual teams, and emotional intelligence. And I have published, several articles. I believe at my core, I believe scholar practitioner model. Theory should augment practice. Practice should create new theories, and that's the only way things will work together. So I believe in that model, and so I've been looking at multiple models like the one that you mentioned, the Tones, the Parag, the Sleep, and multiple models I have created just to help the middle management cross the barrier and see the strategic sides of the equation. Multiple professional certifications, volunteered in number of different places, held board memberships, and still try to give back to the society. I published a book already on organized common sense, which is about project management at a very young level. And also, I'm working on my second book, which is about leadership unleashed, game-changing insights. So that's in a nutshell, simply about me.
This is such a tremendous amount of achievement. We are honored to have you as our guest, and I cannot wait to share your expertise with my viewers, with my audience. Uh, Shriram, you and I, we have already recognized that there is an unmet need within medical affairs in terms of project managers being developed in leadership roles. And we have recently published a paper and have also presented in a conference regarding this aspect. So if you want to know more about this and want to learn more about this publication and the conference details, I will share it at the end of this episode. So stay tuned as we delve into more deeper questions with Sriram. Our topic for today is strategic opportunities and
Mhm.
challenges in medical affairs, a project management perspective. So, Sriram, as you know, and we have discussed this in our paper as well,
Yep.
medical affairs sits at the center, and there are diverse stakeholders where medical affairs has to not only engage with them, align with their strategic goals, strategic alignments, and their objectives, and also engage with the HCP community, engage with the patient community. And that's why I don't want to ask you what is project management, what are the challenges of a project manager. I want to cut that out and straight ask you what is the significance of stakeholder management in the successful execution of projects, and how can project managers ensure alignment among diverse stakeholders?
That's an excellent question. In fact, I always want to say, there is a saying that everybody knows, like, tell me about your friends, I'll tell you who you are. In my book, I say that tell me about the stakeholders that you have identified and your plan for engaging with them. I'll tell you how successful your project will be. It's that is the power of the stakeholders. And like you said, between the scientific community and the commercial operation, there's going to be too many people that are coming into the play, and too many diverse groups of people that are coming into the play. And when you think about people, people are people. They don't consume the information the same way that everybody consumes. Even if you put 10 people that are in the same industry and in the same company, in the same team together, they will all have different perspectives. I'm sure there's this whole antiquated story about six blind children touching different parts of the elephant and telling what the elephant is, right? That's exactly how it is. Many people are going to be not necessarily seeing the big picture, but are going to be focusing on, okay, what does this mean for marketing? What does this mean for development? What does this mean for the payers? What does this mean for the legal perspectives? Stuff like that. And so when you look at these stakeholders, their interests vary, their needs vary, and their expectations vary. As a result, you have to treat all stakeholders as new. So new is an acronym to me: needs, expectation, and wants. And you don't want all of them to be at the same level. So you need to be able to prioritize them. What are the risks associated with delivering something and not delivering something else? And when should you do this? What are the capabilities within the organization? And those are elements that you as a project manager and as a program manager must bring to the table. And frequently, having managed multiple projects and programs myself, I always have this challenge with people, because many times people think that they are going to manage with the tools. The tools are nothing but the tools, right? When you look at a doctor, the doctor will have a series of drugs, the series of assessment, but doesn't pick all of them and apply on all of them. It's on a case by case basis. So depending upon your specific project strategic outcomes that are going to be accomplished, and the visibility, transparency of your project, the stakeholders involved, and the impact. And the impact is extremely important here as well. You need to take a look at the risks associated with that. Risks are a probability of happening with an impact. That doesn't mean that it is going to happen, but if it happens, the impact is going to be very high or very low and stuff like that. So you have to take into consideration all these elements and then see what is the right project, when is the right project to be executed, who are the right level of people to be brought in, and what level should they be communicated to. And all these things are extremely important for us to understand about the stakeholders, because going back to my previous statement, if you don't know about your stakeholders' requirements of your projects or programs, how can you cater to them? How can you make them successful? Because at the end of the day, they are looking for, just because I brought you into my project or program, how are you helping me succeed my projects? So the key here is, how do you lead different stakeholders so that they feel successful. If they are successful, you will be successful. And if you are successful, your projects will be successful. So it is important for us to understand what are the different types of stakeholders, why they want what they want, when they want, and then try to understand the risk management discipline associated with that, bring the value focus inside that, and now magic happens.
Very beautifully put together. I had the opportunity to be a program manager for a big CRO organization, and sitting there in the cusp of in between liaison between the company and the my organization, I had felt exactly the same needs that you had pointed out. So, very, very useful information. And I love the fact that you mentioned also assess the risks. Mostly within medical affairs, we are doing the operations, but we are not really assessing the risks or doing them early on and discussing it with the stakeholders. It's a journey that you go through. It's not just the responsibility of the project or the program manager, it's a teamwork,
Mhm.
working along with the stakeholders, recognizing the risks early on, and tailoring your services, tailoring your support as per the need of the stakeholder.
Absolutely.
Beautifully put. Could not have agreed more. My next question brings me to a topic where I know this is very, very like up your alley and you're very passionate about it. How can project management methodologies, like you said, tools are tools, like Agile and Waterfall, be effectively applied to manage the dynamic nature of medical affairs activities, particularly in adapting to new research or evolving market conditions? For my viewers, quickly explain to us what is Agile, what is Waterfall, because people from medical affairs, they're very scared of hearing these names and like, I don't understand anything. So explain that briefly so that they can connect and then elaborate on the question.
Absolutely, and thanks for helping me to understand your viewers' perspective. That goes back to the stakeholders, that we talked about. Thank you very much for that. So, at the very high level, when you are looking at any project or any initiative for that, but I'm using project a little bit loosely here. It could be an imperative, it could be an objective, it could be a goal. So, whatever be the end thing that you are planning to accomplish, if you treat that as a project for practical purposes, then at the very onset you are taking a look at, okay, what are all the different things that we have to do. So you're doing all kinds of big level planning. What will happen to the medical community, what will happen to the legal community, and what will happen to the regulatory aspects of it, and what about the payers, and how about the affordability of these medicines, and how will we distribute it. So when you think about all these things that goes into the planning, and then you are taking a look at all these elements and say, all right, let's do about analysis. We want to target this for this particular target segment. We will not necessarily focus on other geographical entities and stuff like that. So you're doing a little bit of analysis of how the planned outcomes will be accomplished. And then you are doing the design, like, what kind of scientific methodology you will use, like a mechanism of, state that you will pick, which path you will use, or a new molecule or a small molecule you will use to develop. What is going to be the animal level testing, and then how do you move it to the second level of for human level testing, and what should be the first human dosed, and first in human testing. So all these elements, as you move through those next stages, you are going into the other areas of the development. How do I go about development of these initiatives, the hypothesis that you are creating, and the proof of evidence that you are generating, what data supports whether your hypothesis is good or bad, and subsequently going around testing these things in a large scale population, and controlled environment as well. And then you are finally saying, like, okay, my drug is completely ready, it's approved, I'm submitting it for my NDA applications, or all those applications are now done. FDA has approved. Now you are getting to the commercial operations. So if you look at this, stage by stage, the planning, the analysis, the design, the development, the testing, the maintenance and support of that particular drug, that thought process of what you go through in multiple stages is called waterfall. But in my humble opinion, the waterfall process does not exist in theory. It exists only in practice, because people basically come back and say, well, I'm going to do certain things in certain way, and I am choosing to operate in this particular fashion. For our medical viewers over here, we are not going to have all the answers to these questions that I just talked about. We just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. That is a risk, right? And so you are basically coming up with, maybe 10 different hypotheses. I don't know whether it's going to be this molecule versus that molecule, whether it is going to be targeted for this disease state or that disease state. You may have some answers, you may not have all the answers. So you are going in an iterative fashion, and that's where Agile comes into play. We don't know what we don't know, so let's plan for to the extent that we know, and then start putting some stage gates or some kinds of a measurement indicator meetings that will basically come back and say, this project is good to go to the next stage, or no, this is not going to benefit at all, let's kill it, or let's change our approach slightly and stuff like that, and then you modify. That is an agile ways of working. So I'm trying to keep it simple, not necessarily use the terminologies that are used in waterfall or agile for our viewers to understand these things. So now take a look at this and internalize this for the medical affairs community. From a waterfall perspective, what are all the biggest problems that needs to be solved? We can still go ahead and do this. We talk about the accelerated pace in which medicine is operating at this point. I'm using AI just here as an example here. Artificial intelligence comes in, and we are able to use data analytics. We are able to use medical insights and all kinds of tools and technologies to come back and say we can do these things, right? Those are all simple examples of how technology is helping here. But at the end of the day, when you take a look at this, it's not the accelerated pace of development that is actually having a problem today. The biggest problem is affordability. People cannot afford this particular medicine in the first place to begin with. If you go to some other countries, I don't want to name country, geographically, when you go to some other developing countries over here, they basically come back and say, between feeding my children, getting them to school, and taking care of my health, so my health takes the least priority, right? Now, the next one is, even if people are able to afford that medicine, accessibility is the next issue. Well, yes, for some reason in those developed countries, accidents do happen. And medical surgeries are still happening, and suddenly when there is a blood transfusion required or a blood required, they don't have access to that particular product. The third is not affordability and accessibility, is awareness. Still people think cancer comes only because of people smoking. Like my relatives didn't have it, so I shouldn't have it. That's how much awareness exists. So as medical affairs professionals, as well as any professional for that matter in any industry, we are obligated to bring awareness, accessibility, and affordability. So if you take those considerations, what are we doing today to solve those problems? That's a waterfall level thinking. So you can go back and say, what can we do? Come back with a proposal, come back with a business case, come back with a proposal as to how you can solve this. I'm not saying this will be solved, how you can solve this. Now you get an approval from your management or your leadership. And once you have this approval, you can use adaptive ways of doing this. You don't need to necessarily do all of them at the same time, but maybe work with different communities to come back and say what we can do. An example is here. You and me are trying to solve how we can bring relationship between the medical affairs community and the project program management community and the leadership community, and how we are able to marry these two domains of discipline. But we don't know all the answers. So we are taking a look at, okay, let's take a look at these 3, 4, 5 things, and let's solve them. As you are solving those 3, 4, 5 things, you will learn. Oh, we could have done it this way. We could have done it that way. In hindsight, vision is 2020, right? So, but we adapt. We pivot according to the lessons that we have learned, and we modify. So you need to bring both the concepts of waterfall and agile in the problem that you are solving, because the problem that's solved helps you select the right framework. If these things are the frameworks and tools and techniques, then it helps you select the right framework for you to apply. But if you close your eyes and say, I only want to actually do waterfall alone, that means if somebody sneezes, that person only can have a cold and cannot have COVID. Or if as soon as this person has fever, that person immediately has COVID. That kind of thought process, right? So you are basically coming back and saying, how can I solve this problem based upon the tools? That means you need to know all the tools so that you are picking the right tool for the right job at the right time. So both adaptive and waterfall level approaches come into play. For all practical purposes, I say waterfall to be a plan-driven approach rather than waterfall itself, because the water actually should go back. Otherwise, the waterfall will very, very soon become dry. So
Okay.
there is a cycle there. So people don't realize that. So there is a cycle there. So we have to give it back to the society. We have to make the society better by bringing that awareness, accessibility, and affordability. That seems to be the biggest problem today from a medical affairs community perspective that we can solve.
Very beautifully put. Yes, affordability, accessibility, and the third thing you said was
Awareness,
awareness.
right?
I truly believe these are the core things that are driving, and we as people are working on it. But more awareness is required towards how can we can incorporate these methodologies or effective methodologies within medical affairs to come up with a robust plan which we have not able to manage or hit or kind of deliver.
Absolutely.
Um, and this that brings me to the next question. Talking about metrics, right? We are going to do the work, we are going to make the changes, incorporate this, but there has to be constant sense of measurement in order to see how far or how much more work is needed for your success or the goal that you've set up. So, which metrics or KPIs, like we say, key performance indicators, are most effective in measuring the success of medical affairs projects, and how can these be seamlessly integrated into the project management process?
Excellent, excellent. So when it comes to metrics, as I always tell, measure what matters. It's very important for us not to quickly get into what are some of the quick wins that people say, oh, let's measure this. Well, good. Just because it can be measured does not necessarily mean that it will be a good measure, or just because it cannot be measured does not necessarily mean that it is not a good metric.
Measure.
So we
Mhm.
really have to understand that, and so measure what matters. That's very important, because in today's world, and I'm sure this is primarily with metric-driven organization, they use this multiple tools that basically have a dashboard of multiple things like a thermometer, bar chart, pie chart, and a million charts that are available today, and then they become slaves to the metrics, right? So instead of using the KPI, the first thing that I would suggest is people should look at the critical success factors. So what are the critical success factors for my particular initiative, programs, or portfolio? What's the point in having a beautiful drug that nobody uses? What's the point of having a drug that is not indicated necessarily for one particular problem, but that is also being used for another indication and solving that particular disease, right? So you have to start thinking in terms of what is the critical success factor for my particular project. From that particular angle, move on to what is called the objectives and key results. What key results I have to produce for the persona? At the end of the day, customer, the patient is my customer, not just the pharma alone. Today's world is not focusing on the paying client, but also the paying clients, which are the end users, right? So we have to start thinking in terms of what are some of those objectives and key results that we want to see accomplished, right? And then get into the KPIs. KPIs are for my specific project. What are the things that I would like to see accomplished? So from a medical affairs perspective, again, it goes back to your first question, which is about stakeholders. How effectively are my stakeholders engaging? How are you measuring your stakeholder engagement effectiveness?
Mhm.
Are they coming to the meetings? If you have a board level meetings, are they all coming to the particular meetings? If you have some kind of a patient advisory groups, how many people are coming? How effectively are they contributing? How effectively are they staying? What are they actually having to go as a takeaway item with, and how are they coming back with those action items filled? Those are all things that we can actually use to evaluate how is our stakeholder engagement effectiveness working. And the stakeholder engagement is in two parts, right? One is going to be people that are contributing in a managerial or a development of that particular initiative perspective within your team or
Mhm.
external to the team. But it is also looking at the end consumers, the patients, the consumers, and the pharmaceutical companies and everybody else who is actually contributing to this from a different perspective. So that's one particular way of looking at this. And project managers can build different milestones in their particular project plan or in their ways of working, so that they are able to come and say, now that I have delivered this product, service, or result, now that I have released this capability to these consumers, how effectively are the consumers benefiting? And depending upon the specific project, the KPIs will change. If it's a drug, it's going to be changing differently. If it's going to be a software as a medical device or a software in a medical device, then it's going to be changing. So the KPIs will change based upon the specific project, product, service, result that you are going to do. The other metrics that you can start looking at it from a scientific community perspective is going to be how much people are talking about this. How much are people actually reading about our articles? How many times they are going and talking about this in other articles, other publications? So things like I'm sure for our metrics, the alt metrics, the plum metrics that people talk about. These are things that we can state, incorporate in our project plan and say, how are we doing this? And this is not new. What I'm talking is not completely brand new. For example, if you take marketing, email marketing campaign goes out. One of the things that people start looking at it is, okay, what is the open rate? What is the delivery rate? What is the click-through rate? What is the click to open rate? These are things that people are looking to see. Now that I have sent this and I have these metrics for a 2 week or a 1 week period, what should I do differently in my subsequent email communications? And the same thought process can be brought in and say, now that I have released a capability, what can we do differently in my subsequent approaches to delivering future capabilities, future communications, so that our ideas are better, our ideas are much received. So those elements have to be taken into consideration. The third element that I would basically come back and say, go back to risks. Because if your projects are not delivering, how many risks did you identify? How many risks did you analyze? How many risks did you evaluate? What are the mitigations and what are the effectiveness of those mitigations? How many primary risks? How many secondary risks? How many residual risks? What are you doing with these things? And what are you absorbing? What are you avoiding? What are you transferring? All these things have to be taken into consideration. The problem is many times people think risk as a negative word and immediately think this is going to be a threat. But risk could be a positive opportunity too. Because I actually created a drug, I could potentially have an intellectual property or patent right for the next 15 plus years. So it's a commercial opportunity for you based upon the scientific breakthrough that you had. So risks are not necessarily bad. It's also going to be positive. So we need to start thinking in terms of the opportunities that come with the risks. So you have to start thinking in terms of critical success factor, objectives and key results, and then key performance indices, and then select the appropriate KPIs for your specific project with the goal that you are going to monitor them and modify your ways of working. Otherwise, it's just going to be a number on a chart. Looks pretty, but useless.
I love that you mentioned this again. Do not take uh, do not consider risks to be negative, to be scary, to be something that puts you off, or don't run away from it. It could be a positive opportunity. So I love that, and I love your answers. That brings me to the last question. What do you envision the evolution of project management over the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see this being a project management leader, and so that we can see that vision and we can start thinking within medical affairs what we need to incorporate, how and when?
Sure, sure. That's a wonderful question. So first of all, I think the access to information has increased a lot in these days, thanks to internet, thanks to social media, thanks to technology at a very high level. The access to information is very high. um, and I'm sure in today's world, if you have looked at some of these TV episodes like New Amsterdam and stuff like that, people go there and you can see that, oh, they are doing research on the internet, and they are doing some case studies, some precedent in some other industry and some other place, and immediately take that information and say, now I can find a cure for you, I have an alternate treatment and stuff like that. So that is the power of technology today. So access to information is increasing, and I'm sure that is going to exponentially go up. That's going to exponentially go up. With that comes access to information in the right way. Are you following the proper patent laws, privacy consideration, security considerations? Those things will continue to emerge as well as a result of these things. So that's going to be that breakthrough that is coming up. And and the next level is more and more younger generation is entering the mix here, right? These are people that are born with the technology, right? um, Facebook is pretty much people are saying, like, as soon as they are born, we have to have an email address created for them right away. We have to get their Facebook account created, otherwise it'll be gone. So that's the level of technology that is going today. So with that, they are also bringing new ways of working. So when somebody comes and says this is the way it should be done here, now they are challenging that notion, because there is going to be a intergenerational mix of people that are working together. And so somebody who has the wisdom of experience is going to be challenged by the relevancy of the current data that that person may not immediately have access to from an younger generation. So there is going to be that kind of a generational mix that is coming up. The third thing is going to be the ways of working. Face it, we are all seeing the globalization impact. COVID was a perfect example of what globalization really meant. What happened in one particular location, spread out, and now, the entire world was facing the impact. So similarly, there is going to be a lot of multiple team members from various countries working across multiple time zones, continuously working together, which means our ability to communicate to a person who reads our responses when you are sleeping is going to be increasing. It's not like you and me talking together, and we understand perfectly. The non-verbal communication is going to be replaced somehow in those emoticons. And so we really have to find new ways of communicating to ensure that other person understood. I say in my book, communication is not about what you said, but about what the other person understood. And if the
Mhm.
other person did not understand what you said, even though you said it perfectly, if that other person did not understand, and that person is in Vietnam, by the time that person understands and doesn't get it and ask a question, and then you get that question in the morning, time has elapsed. And that delay means your drug is going to be delayed, insights are going to be delayed. As a result of that, somebody who could benefit from that potential discovery is not going to get the benefit. So that's where the value is going to be not necessarily present. So our ways of working will be challenged. Many times people come and say, oh, AI is there to solve the problem. AI is a high tech, does not replace the high touch. It's not going to go observe how you speak, observe what you do, and come back and say, even though this person says I'm fine with the drug, the facial reaction on the person makes me feel that this person is not telling the truth, or there is much more than what the words are saying. Maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, there may be a technology, but today that technology is still in its early stages, or not even been invented. So there is a lot more things that are coming up in today's world. And how do you get these medicines that you have to these different places? How do you make them affordable? These are things that are already coming into play at this point. So the three things that I talked about, awareness, the affordability, and the accessibility, all these elements are repeatedly coming into the play. So in the next 5 to 10 years, what we are going to see is more technical challenges, more technological breakthroughs. They are both going to compete with each other in terms of the security, the privacy, the confidentiality, the patient, the intellectual property infringements, and many things will start emerging. So it is important for us to actually get grounded on the principles, because the principles are here to stay. They are not going to go away anywhere at all. So it's important for us to get grounded on the principles, to educate the project management community about what is medical affairs, and at the same time educate medical affairs team about what is project and program management, and bring the symbiosis to benefit much more than what each individual team could have individually accomplished.
We know now why you are called the leader of project management through these questions. I'm just appalled and I'm just so enriched right now at the end of this discussion. Thank you, Sriram. You've always been a pleasure working with you. It has been such an enriching journey to have known you, interacted with you, and worked with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pratati, for having me. We have a lot more, in front of us, and we are just getting started. Thank you very much, Pratati.
Cannot agree more. I'm waiting for that journey, and I'm happy that we are together in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pratati. Thanks, everyone.
For my viewers, I will say that we medical affairs will continue to demonstrate value to the diverse stakeholders, to the HCP community, and to the patient community. And project management will have a tremendous and essential role to play in the future. We want to leverage the tools, the tactics, and the strategies from project management, bring it within medical affairs, and then create that indispensable project manager who will be able to streamline the operations end to end, facilitate and enhance patient care, and ultimately facilitate growth and transformation in the field. With that, I want to end this session. It was a tremendous, enriching session with Sriram. Thank you, Sriram. And please go ahead and tune in and stay tuned for the next episodes. Listen to this episode and let me know your comments. Please subscribe to this channel if you like our work.